Hello, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon as well. So we are reading today Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's life uh, based on the earliest sources. So from the chapter number one, the house of God, the book of Genesis tells us that Ibrahim was childless, without hope of children, and that one night God summoned him out of his tent and said to him, "Look now towards heaven and count the stars, if thou art able to number them." And as Ibrahim gazed up at the stars, he heard the voice say, "So shall they seed be." Ibrahim's wife, Sarah, was then 76 years old, he being 85, and she gave him her handmaid Hagar, an Egyptian, that he might take her as his second wife. But bitterness of feeling arose between the mistress and the handmaid, and Hagar fled from the anger of Sarah and cried out to God in her distress, and he sent to her an angel with the message that I will multiply the seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. The angel also said to her, "Behold, thou art with child and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ismail, because the Lord hath heard the affliction." Then Hagar returned to Ibrahim and Sarah and told them what the angel had said. And when the birth took place, Ibrahim named his son Ismail, which means God shall hear. When the boy reached the age of 13, Ibrahim was in his 100th year, and Sarah was 90 years old. And God spoke again to Ibrahim and promised him that Sarah also should bear him a son, who must be called Ishaq, fearing that his eldest son might thereby lose favor in the sight of God. Ibrahim prayed, "Oh, that Ismail might live before thee." And God said to him, "As for Ismail, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee this set this set time in the next year." Sarah gave birth to Isaac, and it was she herself who suckled him. And when he was weaned, she told Ibrahim that Hagar and her son must no longer remain in their household. And Ibrahim was deeply grieved at this, on account of his love for Ismail. But again God spoke to him and told him to follow that Ismail should be blessed, not on but to great nations, where to look back to Ibrahim as their father, two great nations, that is, to guided powers, two instruments, to work the will of heaven. For God does not promise as a blessing that which is profane, nor is there any greatness before God except greatness in the spirit. Ibrahim was thus the fountainhead of two spiritual streams, which must not flow together, but each in its own course, and he entrusted Hagar and Ismail to the blessing of God and the care of his angels in the certainty that all would be well with it. Hagar and Ismail to the blessing of God and the care of his angels in the certainty that all would be well with them. Two spiritual, two spiritual streams, two religions, two worlds for God, two circles, therefore two centers. A place is never holy through the choice of man, but because it has been chosen in heaven. There were two holy centers within the orbit of Ibrahim. One of these was at hand, the other perhaps he did not yet know, and it was to the other that Hagar and Ismail were guided in a barren valley of Arabia, some 40 camel days south of Canaan. The valley was named Becca, some say on account of its narrowness, hills surrounding it on all sides except for three passes, one to the north, one to the south, and one opening towards the Red Sea, which is 50 miles to the west. So the books do not tell us how Hagar and her son reached Mecca. Perhaps some travelers took care of them, for the valley was on one of the uh, great caravan routes, sometimes called the increase route, the incense route, because perfumes and incense and such wares were brought that way from South Arabia to the Mediterranean. And no doubt, Hagar was guided to leave the caravan once the place was reached. It was not long before both mother and son were overcome by thirst, to the point that Hagar feared Ismail was dying. According to the traditions of their descendants, he cried out to God from where he lay in the sand, and his mother stood on a rock at the foot of a nearby eminence to see if any help was in sight. Seeing no one, she hastened to another point of vantage, but from there likewise not a soul was to be seen. Half distraught, she passed 7 times in all between the 2 points, until at the end of her seventh course, as she sat for rest on the further rock, the angel spoke to her in the words of Genesis. And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, What lead there, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise and lift up the lad and hold him in the hand, for I will make them a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. I'm sorry. The water was a spring which God caused to well up from the sand, and touched of Ismail's heel. And thereafter the valley soon became a halt for caravans by reasons of excellence and abundance of the water. And the well was named Zamzam. I'm sorry. As to Genesis, it is the book of Isaac and his descendants, not of Ibrahim's other line, of Ismail. It tells us, and God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. After that, in scarcely mentions his name, except to inform us that the two brothers, Isaac and Ismail, together buried their father in Hebron, and that some years later Esau married his cousin, the daughter of Ismail. But there is indirect praise of Ismail and his mother in the psalm, which opens how amiable are the tabernacles, O Lord of hosts, and which tells of the miracles of Zamzam as having been caused by their passing through the valley. Blessed is the man whose strength is in thee, in whose heart are the ways of them who passing through the valley of Baca make it a well. When Hagar and Ismail reached their destination, Ibrahim had still 75 years to live, and he visited his son in the holy place to which Hagar had been guided. The Quran tells us that God showed him the exact site near to the well of Zamzam upon which he and Ismail must build a sanctuary. And they were told how it must be built. And the way it was told, its name Kaaba, as in cube, is in virtue of its shape, which is approximately cubic. Its four corners are towards the 4 points of the compass. But the most holy object in that holy place is a celestial stone, which it is said was brought by an angel to Ibrahim from the nearby hill Abu Qubais, where it had been preserved ever since it had reached the earth. It descended from paradise, wetter than milk. It was at that time. It was like when it was uh, in the custody of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi Islam. So it was like very white. It was uh, whiter than milk, but the sins of the sons of Adam made it black. This black stone they built into the eastern corner of the Kaaba, and when the sanctuary was completed, God spoke again to Ibrahim and bade him institute the rite of the pilgrimage to Mecca or Makkah, as it later came to be called, purified by house for those who go the rounds of it and who stand beside it and bow and make prostration and proclaim unto men the pilgrimage, that they may come unto they on foot, and on every lean camel out of every deep ravine. Now Haggard had told Ibrahim of her scratch for help, and he made it part of the rite of the pilgrimage that the pilgrims should pass 7 times between those 2 points, named as Safa and Marwa. For so the two eminences between which she had passed had come to be named. And later Ibrahim prayed, perhaps in Canaan, looking round him at the rich pastures and fields of corn and wheat. Verily, I have settled line of mine of spring in a titless valley at the holy house. Therefore, incline unto them men's hearts and sustain them with fruits that they may be thankful. So thank you so very much uh, for like being with me, and inshallah, by the wish of Allah, uh, we'll be going through our chapter number 2 tomorrow, which will be a great loss. Its name is a great loss. So, inshallah, see you tomorrow, and thank you so very much for being with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.